Thank you for praying for us, for supporting us, and it was this trip was very different than a year ago when we went because last year we didn't know anything. We were blind. We didn't even know who our hosts were. We had never met them. And this year was very different because we knew what we were doing. We knew where we were going, we thought, on some things. But we also had a heart to bless the pastors, not just with the word, but we wanted to encourage them, and so we did. We raised some things and brought some Bibles, some books that were provided for us, the solar chargers, all these little things that we were able to purchase that we thank those of you who bought things and helped provide and gave us money to provide those things. They were fantastic. We gave out the solar chargers, and the next day I got a text from the pastor, thank you so much. I'm already using it. I love it. This is awesome. So same thing with the soccer balls and all that stuff. So first, thank you guys for supporting us and being there with us and ministering alongside with us. Let's see, how do I want to do this? We should probably put Reese on the spot first. Yeah. So it was a lot of fun because we didn't tell Pastor Steve or Brian anything, and they just immediately, both of them independently, said, "You know what? We got something for Reese." And every service, they would pull Reese up and make him talk. And so I want you to share a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So I walk in a lot of fear in the whole, not physical harm, not scared of that, but emotional. Yeah, this speaking, not my thing. Singing, I can do that. No. So, what was it? The second to last? Was it the last? Which service was it? I don't know. When Steve. Was Steve.
That was at the pastor's training meeting.
That was at the pastor's training meeting. Okay, Pastor Steve.
Oh, no.
Pastor Steve pulls me up on stage and says, "I have a word for you." Gives me that word, and then was like, "Since we're not walking in fear anymore." So I got a mic. And he calls all the young people up, and he's like, "Give them a word and pray over them." I'm like, "No."
I'm sure you did say no.
I actually did. I looked him in the face and said, "No," and started walking away from him. He grabbed me by the neck, gave me a big old hug, and said, "I'm a man of God, and I don't take no." And then every service after that, I spoke in some way, shape, or form. And it was awesome. And the biggest thing was I started getting comfortable with it because I started trusting not myself, but that it wasn't my words coming out of my mouth anyway, so why worry? So, praise God.
Okay, I'm next. On the spot. I'm not sure how to put it down into 10 or 15 minutes, to be perfectly honest. I have like 25 pages worth of notes of God did this, and God did this, and God did this. How do you boil it down? Probably one of the biggest things to me, I like goat. Yeah, we had goat. It was well boiled, don't worry. Probably two big things. One of them was God's faithfulness. When we were there last year, God spoke so many things over the different places that we visited. And when we stepped foot back in those places, God had done the things that he had said. And it was just beautiful to walk back in and go, God said there was going to that he was going to bless your ministry and you weren't going to fit in this building and there was going to be a tent. And there's a tent. And God said that you only have one man standing beside you right now, and he's going to send you men to stand beside you. And when we met with the leadership, there were men everywhere standing beside Pastor Steve. God said he was going to expand things, and we walked into things that were expanded. We preached in a church that was in the middle of an expansion, and when you expand a mud hut, well, it's kind of a messy process. So 1.5 of the walls were still wet. The roof still had a big opening, which is fun in a hailstorm. But to walk back in and go, a year ago, God said, and God did, was just an incredible testimony. The other thing that was amazing to walk into is, if I can just kind of paint a picture of the places we were. Nairobi and Eldoret and the mountain, they all have their well-off places. They do. It is not, don't get a picture in your mind of Kenya as it's all completely impoverished, third world country. There's no electricity. There's no flushing toilets. There are those things in some places. There are. We didn't go to those places. Okay. We didn't go to those places. We went to the places where the norm is the little 3-year-old on the side of the road carrying a bucket of water, where the normal is, there's, if there happens to be a cardboard box, they made a house out of that. If there happens to be a sheet of iron, well, that's an upscale house. And we walked in those places, and the toilet has a nail that you turn sideways and it locks the door. That's a win. We walked in those places. We walked in the places where there is no running water. We walked in the places where 12 and 13-year-olds are in prostitution because that's how they get a meal for the day. We walked in places where addiction is just what it is. But in those places, we walked in a place where the statistic, it just, 1 person out of 10 is not HIV infected. Okay. And there are children everywhere, everywhere. And so these are the places that we walked. But in those places, we saw people whose lives were utterly transformed by the gospel of Christ. And they didn't bug out of those places. They're staying there and growing and being a light in those places. God is doing amazing things in the kingdom, in places where disease runs rampant, where filth just is the reality, where, forget luxury, there's no convenience, there's no basics, what we would consider basics. And yet God is putting lighthouses in the middle of this that aren't afraid of it, that have come out of it, but that haven't come out of it and then turned their backs and said, see ya. They've come out of it and are willing to stay right there and serve and serve and serve. When we were with Pastor Steve, the leadership meeting on a Monday morning in Kayole, which is one of the slums of Nairobi, there were 40 of his leadership team there. But here's the really cool thing. His leadership team, some of them have been with him for a couple of years. Everybody introduced themselves. And 15 to 20? 15 to 20 of the 40 leaders that were there have been recently saved under his ministry and came, and their testimony is, I've got Jesus, what do I do? I am here ready to serve because I know the need here and I know that I got to do something. So there are no pew sitters, there are no sit back and observers, there is an army of God being built, y'all. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see.
Amen. Yeah, we like I said, this trip was different because we kind of knew what we had. But I want to go back. The big theme of the whole 2 weeks for me was fear and overcoming fear. And there was a lot of from lessons that I taught to us. It started from the very beginning. We were sitting. We went to the house of Corrie ten Boom, where the hiding place is. And if you know the story, the family hid Jews during the occupation of the Netherlands or Holland. and it's just haunting to stand in that room, knowing that Nazis were in that room, and there were Jews behind this wall, and they were hiding. And I mean, it's just, and you think about what this family did in fear, and what they must have been going through. And then we had some opportunities where the first place we went to, we made a choice one night. We went to the mall, and I'm going to tell this quick story. We went to the mall, and yeah, Emily, don't hear this. Please plug your ears. Plug your ears, Emily. So we took a taxi, which was fine, and then it was the wrong mall. So we took another taxi to the other mall, and the other mall is only, not even half a mile from the house. Okay, so it was dark, and we couldn't find another taxi. So we decided what we were going to do is we're going to walk. It's only like a half a mile. It's like down the street, we turn, and down, and then we turn again. We knew exactly where we were at GPS. I knew exactly where we were, what we were doing. So we prayed, and we set off, and we just started walking. And it's interesting. And we just started walking. Well, there was a short way and a long way. We came to a T, short way and a long way. So I was like, let's go the short way because it's shorter. Makes sense. So literally we go the short way, and we turn to go down this other street, and there's not any street lights. It is completely dark. Now we can see the road that we're going to. I mean, you can see it. It's maybe 100 yards or more, 150 yards. And we just turned around and we walked. We just went back the other way because we knew the road the other way. It was longer, but we had driven down that road at night, and we knew there were lights the whole way. And we walked it and everything else. And we got back to the apartment and everything else, and we were like, thank you, Jesus, thank you. But it was a thing of, for us, it was that there was fear there. And it was kind of like, God, we're just in your hands. We're going to do what you want us to do. And then we started teaching about fear. I started teaching about fear to the leaders, and I had a bunch of them come up to us and say, thank you. No one teaches on fear, that you can overcome fear. Fear is like a part of our society here in Kenya, and nobody teaches on it. So thank you for teaching on that. So that really got me excited. Well, then we went to Eldoret, and we're in a place in Eldoret, and we were right in the middle of downtown. On one side behind us, it's called Little Mogadishu. On the other side, it was Hindu, and on the other side, it was Christian and Kenyan, basically. And we were right in the middle of it. And we were kind of excited that we were right in the middle of it. And we were like, oh, we're Jerusalem, right in the middle of of all the everything. Yeah, Bishop Ryan was not happy we were there. He did not like that we were there. Matter of fact, he tried to get us to move, and we talked about it and prayed over it, and he talked to the security guard and the guy who owned the place, and he gave his blessing because we weren't going to go, but that's another story. But so we get into the place, and we walk into the place, and it's beautiful. It's modern. It's super clean. Wi-Fi worked great. Yeah, it was great. Everything was very good. Yeah, it was like the Wi-Fi was amazing. Nairobi, we had bad Wi-Fi, but I didn't even recognize when we walked into the apartment that there was no front door. There was no door. There's a gate. So like the opening into the apartment, there's a gate and a fence on the whole thing, and you had to go in and out of a gate, but there was no door. And I didn't even, you lock the gate at night and stuff. So inside the apartment, in the living room area, it kind of got cold at night because literally it was just wide open. And so that first night, you've got the prayers going on in the back behind us, and we're just sitting there and we're just kind of praying. And, we're like, what, God, you've put us here for a reason. This is a nice place. We're good. God's got this. We woke up the next morning. It was great. Everything was fine. The entire time we were there was amazing. But it was interesting how this thing of fear for me just kept cropping up, and how fear just kills us. It disables us. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. It just paralyzes us. And so for me, it was incredible to be there and to go through those experiences this time, to where we were kind of out there. we were a little more exposed. Last time we stayed at Pastor Brian's house, and we went with him, and then we came back with him. This time he dropped us off, and then we went to the store, and then we did what we did. I had to go buy some more Kenyan shillings, so I went to the bank by myself and was told that I was Mzungu and I couldn't shop at that bank. And they turned me away. They said no Mzungu. Twice, yeah, two different banks. They told me I couldn't be there. So they, but we were able to function and everything else, but it was encouraging. It kept building us up. And so as I was preaching and teaching the pastors, and I kept bringing up fear, I kept talking about it, and how we got to make sure we're not afraid, that we stand bold, we stand strong, we preach out, because of the superstitions and all those other things. And it was amazing. We saw some really cool things happen. The ministry time was totally different than last time we were there, because we were primarily speaking with pastors and leaders this time. And there was a lot of blessing and encouragement and anointing and things like that. And we were blown away by some of the pastors and their stories. And it was just incredibly awesome. Also, to say one thing that Becky was saying, every church that we visited last time when we were there, this time when we went, they were expanding. They were growing. Every church was growing. It was amazing to be there and to go, this church, they're expanding out. The one with the hole in the roof was because they had built out the wall and they didn't have enough to cover the hole. So when it rained, it came in. But yeah, God was just doing some incredible, incredible things. And there was one more thing I wanted to say, but I'm forgetting what it was. But one other thing is, our friend Pastor Brian that you guys met, wanted to kind of give you a little fun little update thing. We got to go to his farm where he's growing. He's got a little over 2 acres, and he's growing corn, which that's what everyone grows up there. Everyone has corn, but he's also growing coffee. And coffee, it's a little more difficult to grow, but it has a much higher yield monetarily. And it's kind of awesome because he wasn't sure about it, and we actually talked about it when we were there last year, about growing coffee and everything else, and he went ahead and did it, and he's got some beautiful coffee trees that are growing, and he looks like he's going to have a really good harvest of coffee this year. Also, we got to go to his family plot and meet his mother and his father, who is very ill, and we got to pray for his father. His father's actually doing better. We found out that he has cancer. He has colon cancer. But we got to pray for him. He's actually eating now. It was wonderful. I did not expect when we walked in that he sat up and started talking, and it was just a wonderful time that we got to have with him and pray for him. But if y'all remember Pastor Brian's testimony where his mother brought him in the house and tried to kill him, we went into that house. And he brought us in there, and he took Reese and I in there. He said, "This is where we were. This is, my mom brought me in the door here. He goes, this is where they had everything set up to where they were going to hang me in the corner over here." And he showed, and he said, "Now this is the window on this side. This is the one that I jumped through, because everything else was locked and barred up, but that one I could fit." And he goes, "So I ran and jumped through that," and he took off, and just incredible. But the testimony is that his mother now is a believer, accepted us, welcomed us in. We had a great time with her. They had a great meal. That's where we had our goat. We actually ate in her home. So she brought us and invited us in her home. They still live very tribal there, where the wife has a house and the husband has a house. And so we were in her home and got to eat. Oh, what did I start? I'm so sorry.
Translate house as mud hut and decide if you really want that. Okay.
Yeah. They really weren't houses. Yeah, they had no electricity or water or drain. They used mutual outhouses. Everybody used the same outhouses. Yeah, everybody still got to share a bathroom. But She welcomed us in, and we had a wonderful meal there. It was so nice just to sit there and relax in the home, and what a testimony to what God can do. And I was amazed because Brian, even talking and stuff like that, this is a woman that tried. I mean, it's his mother, but she tried to kill him when she found out he converted, and they love each other. We got to meet some of his family, and then to go pray with his dad was awesome. Yeah, true redemption story. As the church, as we continue to pray and continue to look forward, and there is so much potential of what God's doing there. The Nairobi is growing faster than it can grow. I know and what's happening is the people are just being dumped into the slums because they're thinking that there's opportunity there because there's money in Nairobi, and Nairobi is very nice. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, we went to the mall, and it's really nice, and there are some places, but when you get off that one road and go down into the slum, I mean, you go back, 150 years, and so the people are coming from everywhere. They're coming from Sudan. They're coming from Ethiopia and everywhere. And they have no jobs. They have nothing for them, so they end up in the slum. And so Pastor Steve, that's where he's at. He's in the middle of the slum, and he's ministering to those in there. And there's an incredible work to be done there, an incredible work that's happening there. God's moving. You're seeing mega churches that are actually growing in Nairobi, and they're serving and they're working and stuff, but we're starting to see that, I hate to say it, there's a line, like we'll minister to a point, but we're not going to go past that because they're the slums. Does that make sense? I mean, we see it here in America too. We'll minister in the nice thing, but we're not going to go over to that community and minister. And that's what you're seeing a lot of that. You're actually seeing a lot of that. And then when we go out to the mountain is amazing. The mountain is beautiful. The mountain is incredible. And the thing in the mountain is that these guys are serving their work and the churches are growing. It's just that there's so many tribes up there. There's so many people up there. And the church organizations only go up to a certain point, kind of where the electricity is, and then they stop. So you see like the Salvation Army, you see what we saw Assembly of God, we saw Quakers, which blew me away. I was like, a Quaker church? Okay. But they don't go past that. So if you go to and you stop, you're okay. But if you go past that where the power stops and the water stops and you start going up the mountain where you have to park and keep walking, there's no help up there. And that's the guys that we're done. There's a great desire, and the guys are great. And we actually did some things different this time where instead of visiting every church, we visited one church and they all came to us. And that was fantastic. Even though it took some of them 5 and 6 hours to walk to the church we were in, it was so much better because we were able to go to one spot and minister to a lot of pastors instead of having to go to 5 different churches in one day, which is dangerous, actually. So as you're praying, please continue to pray for Pastor Brian and the work he's doing, and Pastor Steve and the work he's doing, and all of Kenya. And as we look forward, we're already planning next year that we want to go at least twice, maybe more. So if you have a heart and a desire to minister, and it's hard ministering. It's hard, but it's good. And you got to be willing to eat rice and 1 chicken leg a day. And if you can do that, or goat. The goat meal was a lot. We had a lot of goat. We had more goat than we could eat. We had plenty of goat. But no, seriously, if you're praying about it, we're going to have some stuff because the need is huge. And we don't want to meet all their needs because we know that would be impossible for us. But we know God can. And we know we just got to be obedient to what he's calling us to do and do what he's calling us to do because we're already seeing things improve. We saw some things improve from when we were there last year. And I'm expecting as it continues that's going to continue happening. So thank you guys. Thank you for praying for us. We appreciate y'all so much.
Amen.